Hello, I'm Chris Burns and welcome to The Network, where we get into a matrix of newsmakers to get to the heart of an issue. And watch out, they have to answer in 25 seconds or less, or else. Let's take a look at that issue right now.
The massacre at a Jewish school in Toulouse shook Europe and France's presidential campaign, recharging debate over how to deal with religious extremism. Some argue the young Muslim man's turning to violence was a symptom of European intolerance and exclusion. Others blame it on radical religious leaders. So far, investigators believe French-born Mohammed Merah of Algerian origin was not part of a terror network as he boasted. Yet it's another case of homegrown violent extremism in Europe. How to address that is a dilemma for European governments that admit multicultural policies have failed. It's also an issue for EU hopeful countries in the Balkans, where money from Muslim countries has bolstered more radical elements. And while religious extremism in Europe centers on Islam, the recent massacre in Oslo by a self-proclaimed Christian extremist challenges government policies on dealing with any violent groups. Groups that intensify fears of escalating ethnic and religious clashes in the future.
Connected in this issue of The Network here at the European Parliament, Sophie in 't Veld, Vice Chair of the Community of Civil Liberties, Justice and Home Affairs. Also in Parliament, Ahmed Bouziane, Director of Islamic Relief Belgium, active nationally and internationally. And in Antwerp, an MP from the Flemish Parliament for the right-wing Vlaams Belang Party. Thank you for joining us at The Network. I have a question for all three of you, starting with Sophia.
En commençant avec Sophie, quel est l'impact de l'attentat à Toulouse?
What is the impact of the attack in Toulouse? Does it divide Europeans, or will reconciliation efforts intensify?
Sophie.
I hope we will keep our cool. Until now, the reactions have been very mixed and moderate. So I believe we recognise there is no division of the population. There are some individual violent extremists, but Europeans remain united.
Okay, Ahmed?
I share almost the same opinion. The majority of people do not believe in extremism. I hope that Europe will continue its reconciliation and reconstruction, because ideas like this are no good to anyone.
Philip, do you think that all is well?
Reconciliation, I'd like that a lot, but Europeans have got that already. And I think that European leaders must realise that the multicultural society has failed, and that Islam is not a religion of peace and solidarity, but an ideology of war and violence against non-believers. What do we need? We need less Islam in Europe.
Ahmed, how do you respond to that?
I speak on behalf of an organisation that is Muslim, which began in Europe, which is represented in 45 countries around the world and does great work. It's been able to reach the top level in Europe. It's a partner of the European Commission, the World Food Programme. Therefore, internationally, Muslims are...
Okay, but can you respond to what Philip said?
Philip.
And therefore, in this framework, Islamic Relief is a model organisation in Europe, which has taken the right path and which thrives.
Sophia, to what extent is violence the cause of exclusion and discrimination? How could Europe combat exclusion?
I believe it's the responsibility of elected officials and politicians to create a climate where everyone feels included. Mr. De Winter is totally wrong when he says the multicultural society has failed. The multicultural society exists, and violent extremism does not hold a monopoly over one religion or another, nor over political ideology. We must fight against extremism, and not against one religion or another.
Do the laws against the veil marginalise and ghettoise Muslims who are born here, or are the laws justified to protect the rights of women?
The laws against the veil are symbolic and distinctively European laws because they protect our European freedoms and gender equality, equality between men and women. It's still important in European civilization that we keep our European values that are opposed to Islamic values.
Ahmed,
what do you think of these laws against the veil?
Within Islamic Relief, we have women who work. The organisation has a workforce of about 33,000 people in Europe. We have in the organisation some women who are veiled and some who aren't. And we all get along very well. There are also Muslims and non-Muslims who work in this organisation. It works well like that. We rely on the expertise of the person and not their appearance.
Okay, Ahmed. Sophia, to what extent do Muslim communities create their own ghettos, creating what they call in Germany parallel societies? And how can we fix this?
I think every member of our society has a responsibility to be part of the community. However, discrimination, xenophobia, Islamophobia do exist. And I would also like to respond to what Mr. De Winter said. I find this opportunistic feminism incredible. If Islamophobes fought for the rights of women generally, it would be much more believable.
Philip, how do you respond to that?
I still see that Islam wants to organise a kind of apartheid society. Islam is the main obstacle to integration. You should know that Islam wants to organise a parallel society with completely different morals and values. Islam does not accept equality between men and women, freedom of expression, democracy. It's the Europeans who are now integrated into Islamic society, in the Islamic neighbourhoods of our big cities.
Ahmed, I wanted to ask you about that. Philips Vlam's Berlin party has just established a website on alleged crimes by immigrants, like that of Geert Wilders in the Netherlands. Critics say it's reminiscent of the Nazi era or the Stasi. How do you react to this?
There is diversity throughout the world, and if we isolate ourselves, thinking that what we believe is the absolute truth, we won't get very far, not in Europe, not internationally. This is fundamentally about other people's ignorance. They have prejudice and give judgments such as these without evidence, without anything at all, and then you cannot build a society together.
Philip, how do you defend this website? It's been heavily criticised.
This is merely an information point where people can tell us about the problems that exist in the multicultural society. Immigration is still a major problem in our society, and we're interested in the problems of social security fraud.
But there are people calling it Nazi.
But no, that's so easy. When they call you a Nazi, you're a racist. No more arguments, no more discussion, no more debate.
Sophia, there is frustration among the people. It's for that this website exists. How else can we fight crime like this?
People are frustrated for other reasons, and people like Mr. De Winter and his friend Mr. Wilders in the Netherlands are just looking for a scapegoat. If it's not Muslims, it's the Greeks or the Poles. There's always someone, instead of addressing the real problems of people who have problems with their jobs, their financial situation. There's the economic crisis. What will be our children's future? Education, and so on. These are people's real problems.
Thank you, Sophia, and thank you all. It's the end of this edition. I would like to thank our guests, Sophia Interveld, Ahmed Bouziane, and Philip De Winter. I'm Chris Burns, and thank you for staying connected to The Network.